hard for their community. They believed in service to community, and that's the legacy that they passed on. So, trust, sharing, and a real care about the people around you. Here's a story that I think might interest you and show the mutual trust that was growing in this community, early days of Nanaimo. My grandfather ran the store pretty much on his own. He would have to be in the grocery store all day and deliver the groceries often by night. And he would deliver the groceries with a horse and cart. Now picture, you're sleeping in your bed. You've left your door open because you didn't need to worry about that kind of thing here. And this man would come tiptoeing into your house. And you liked it that was happening. You liked it because he was delivering your groceries to you. And I have this vision of him quietly stepping onto perhaps a creaky porch, opening the door, putting the groceries on the kitchen table, and the little bill on the table. And maybe not just groceries, maybe feed from the grain store as well, because that's what they did back then. They did errands for each other as well. And then off he would go. It kind of draws a picture, doesn't it, of a community that trusts each other? Oh, hi, honey. So fast forward, Lawrence and Catherine had a thriving business. They didn't grow rich, but they housed and clothed and fed their family. My grandfather was born around 1885 here, and when he and his brothers grew up, it was Auntie Maggie too, but she didn't work in the store very much as far as I know. But the brothers took over the store. My mother's name is Stella Manson, so my parents are Gibb and Stella Stevens. My mother's name is Stella Manson, and her father's name is Will Manson. And I don't know if that name means anything to anybody here.
Know them all.
Yeah? Don't say anything in case it's bad. Anyway, this story that I'd like to tell you is just a sweet little story that I think shows the spirit of my grandfather, who did love to share things with other people. Well, would you have a story too?
Oh, I'm sorry, but Will Mattinson was Mom and Dad's best. He was the best man. You know, you'd be surprised how many people are related.
Yes.
You know, there was only 1,500 men or people here when my mother was born.
There you go. Isn't that interesting?
I'm still finding relatives.
Oh, we have to do some storytelling together next after we're done here. Well, your family has good taste in friends, I think. So does mine. Will Nelson was a real staunch church person, good person. They really believed in community. And here's a cute little story I think that I like. During the Depression, when things were really tough, sugar products were not very available. There were a few other general stores in the community by then. And this story comes to me from Mrs. Addison. She told me this once when we were camping out at Zyder Z. She said during those days, she and her friends used to wonder, the odd time when there was a sugar shipment, say of Jell-O, other stores would put it on their shelves and make a pretty good profit. But they never saw Jell-O on the shelves of Mr. Masson's store. One day, they solved the mystery as to why that was. Mrs. Addison's neighbor's son had a bicycle accident, a serious one, and he was quite badly injured, and he also broke his arm. So the his mother couldn't go to the store and get the groceries, so she sent one of the other children to Manson's store with a grocery list, and said, oh, and Mr. Manson, would you please also go to Wardle's bike store, pick up my son's bicycle, pay for it, and bring it along with groceries. And so this is what my grandfather did. He went, of course back then they had a van, he got the bike from Wardle's bike shop, put it in the van, he got the groceries and put it in the van, and he made out his little bill and put that in the van too. That night, just like his father before him, he delivered the groceries to the house. When the family woke up in the morning, they found the bike on the porch, the groceries on the table and a little bit set out on the table beside the groceries. But there was something else there, something in the box that wasn't on the receipt. Can you imagine what that was?
Bill.
It was a box of Jell-O. So what Mr. Manson used to do is take the Jell-O whenever it came in and tuck it away. And when children were hurt or injured, Jell-O was delivered in a grocery bag for them. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. That's Mr. Wardle. Is that your bike shop?
That's right. Albert bought a bike but never did pay for it.
Maybe my grandfather paid for it.
I have a lot of stories about that.
I actually heard that you were coming tonight, and I was so pleased because that is part of the family story, the Wardle name. So that's just a small indication. One more quick story. I talked about mutual trust, sharing, the genuine care for each other, and I think this is kind of a fun story too. As I said, oftentimes we're tough, and there were farmers in the community who had property, and they farmed it around Yellow Point, Cedar, and sometimes even in Ladysmith. And during some of the tougher times, they needed to feed their families, but they didn't have money to buy groceries. And so they would come to the grocery store and offer Mr. Manson, this would be Cooper's great-great-grandfather, a deed to one of the back acres, overgrown with blackberries, not very usable, certainly not worth anything in those days, but a dignity exchange. And of course, Mr. Manson would accept that deed, and it would go into a trunk upstairs in the store and be kept there in case anybody ever wanted to redeem it. Well, years later, probably about the mid-1950s, I think, when it was time to close the store, they were packing it up and getting ready for all the things to go, which, by the way, they went to Barkerville. My mom and her siblings went upstairs and opened this trunk, and there they found dozens of deeds to property. Now I'm thinking, I could be a lender. Like, this is good for me, right? No. Of course, they laughed. They had a few good memories, and they burned the deeds, as was intended. And my grandfather would never have had it any other way. And I love the story of finding deeds to Yellow Point, Cedar, and maybe some from Ladysmith, knowing that those people were building a community together, a community of care. And they did. There's so many good stories. I wish there were a few more spicy ones, like I said. So in closing, what I'd like to say is that I can't wait to see what Cooper's going to do when he grows up. Is he going to be a sixth generation to have a seventh generation? Or will he get bored with all of this rooted stuff and take off to lands unknown? Well, what I hope is that he finds a place where he feels really that he can belong. And in fact, I hope that for all of us. And I would like to thank you for listening to our stories tonight.